Namaskar, Kemonacho to all lovely super mothers. Welcome to Super Mother Unleashed. Today in my show, I'm going to have conversation with a super mother who is also a soul realignment practitioner, and her name is Isabel Faria. Hi Isabel, welcome to my show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I really love listening to your podcast.
Great. At the age of 26, you have started self-discovery journey with a simple question. What can I change to move closer to happiness? Can you share our listeners about your childhood?
I will start with the very first experience that I've had about change, and that was at the age of 12. My parents decided to move from South Africa to Portugal.
Mm-hmm.
So I was born in South Africa, and this was a huge change for everyone. So, changing friends, changing where you live. And one of the huge changes that we had was that we went from living by ourselves as a family, and we moved in with my grandparents. And
Okay.
during this experience as a young child, starting my teens, and seeing the dynamics between my grandmother and my mother, and how my mother kind of changed throughout the years and throughout this interaction, this made me start thinking, how easily we are influenced by each other, and how easily we place our expectations on other people. And at the age of 26, I was going through a lot of personal changes. My grandfather had been very sick and then passed away. I had a
Okay.
relationship that wasn't very healthy at the time. And all of these things really opened my eyes to say, okay, I can't depend on other people for my happiness. What do I do? What do I need to change so that my happiness is in my hands? And yeah, that
Okay.
would be the first step that I would say towards my awakening. But it really only started my spiritual journey consciously, I would say, around the ages of 30, so 10 years, I would say, maybe 8, 10 years after that, where I
Okay.
consciously made a decision to look into myself, my growth, how much my life depended on other people. And yeah, so that was the start of my spiritual journey. And it all had to do with the need to have a child, the want, the desire to have a child, and the difficulty that I was having at the time of falling pregnant.
That's a great thing. You thought about your changes, which will take you very closer to the happiness.
Yes, and I'm trying to show here it was from the age of 12, and it's still continuing. So each little step that a person takes is a step closer to our truth. We just have to let the journey happen. And that's what I've learned with my experiences. A little less control, because in the past I
Okay.
really loved having control over everything, and more allowing things to happen the way they are
Mhm.
meant to happen.
So, how's your journey of pregnancy till you become new mom? If you can share that.
Like I said, I had this spiritual journey before I fell pregnant, and I noticed that why it was taking me so long is that I wasn't prepared for the changes that would happen in my life, because I was conscious of how much I would need to change for my space, my home, my career, and everything would allow a child. And when I fell pregnant, I think this rearrangement of who I was, and this accepting this new change, I felt it in my physical body. From day one, I had huge pain,
Mm.
mainly focusing on my back. I was mainly at home the whole time. I couldn't work. I couldn't. So the need to let go of that career focus came through this pain. All this changing allowed me to prepare myself and to say, okay, a lot is going to change when the child comes. And
Okay.
I have to let it happen. I can't really do anything to change that. And when I had my child, this adaptation phase, I
Mhm.
would call it, what continued until around 3 months of his life. So there I continued to feel pain. And then from one moment to the other, pain disappeared. Emotional unbalance that I had calmed down. And after 3 months, it was all very easy. And the support that I had from my husband was brilliant, was and is still
Husband support
needed.
in this time is
Yes,
really important. True.
yes,
Mm.
it was really helpful.
Mental support,
In mental and also doing things, because
doing things.
with the pain that I had, I really wasn't able of doing a lot of heavy movements or, taking care of everything. And I really needed someone there who could support me, and he was always there. So that was wonderful to have.
Oh, wow. So if you also can share what are challenges you faced during this process, like happy and sad moments, like how you dealt with the process, like till the time you gave birth to your baby.
So when we work with spirituality and everything, it's always about going within and understanding who we are. And so, like I was mentioning, when I was 12 and we moved in with my parents, I noticed this change in my mother when she was interacting so closely with my grandmother, because the expectations that my grandmother had of her kind of overruled my mother's expectations for herself. And so my mother felt a need to change because of someone else. And during my pregnancy, that was my main focus, is not to allow myself, because when you're pregnant and when you have a baby, the first months, you are very easily influenced by the outside world. Was for me, I would always go back to this situation in my life to remind myself how important it is for me to stay focused on my needs and not to see it as being selfish, but seeing it as something that is really necessary so that I can feel happy and fulfilled. And this feeling of happiness can be passed to the child. So it's very important to understand that when we do something for ourselves, that we create happy feelings. Our hormones that we release are related to happiness, and these hormones do influence the baby. But if we do things to please other people, we are creating stress on ourselves, and this stress hormone is what the baby is going to receive. And so for me, it was really important to stay focused on me and not seeing it as being selfish, but as the first education that I will give my baby. First contact that my baby will have will be a happy contact and happy education. So I really did focus on myself, and I didn't see it as being selfish. And I needed to rest because of my pain. So I did decide not to go to work. And so all these decisions that I made them for me. And I really see the results, because I really have a happy life. And we have our ups and downs like every family. But, when you look at your life and you say more than 75% of the time you are happy and you understand each other and you respect each other, then it's a really good life.
So true. The way you explain this, I think lots of our listeners will definitely love this.
And I think it's also important for the listeners to understand that not hard. It's just a different way of seeing things or of thinking, because we are educated that we should not be selfish, or we are educated that we have to think about other people, and we forget about ourselves. And so when we forget about the part of us that makes us happy, then life becomes really hard. And I think it's important that we just remind ourselves life is easy, and it's okay that it's easy. And let's enjoy life together. That would be my wish for all the listeners, that they allow themselves to enjoy life.
Great. I know your new venture, True Beginning, is very special for you. So what inspires you to start this, and how Akashic Record plays an important role in it? Our listeners love to hear.
So I will start with the name. So the name has a very special meaning for me. So every person has experienced beginnings, new situations in their life. So getting married is a new beginning. Having a baby is a new beginning. Also starting a new school is a new beginning. And for me, all of these beginnings were not true beginnings until I started focusing on myself. So the true beginning for me started when I decided to leave Portugal and move to Germany. That must have been the first decision that I did, just thinking of my own needs. And it was a scary journey. The language was something new for me. The place was new. So I had worked often in Germany, but never lived in Germany. And I've always lived close to my family. And so this change was a hard change, but I knew it was a necessary change for me. And that's why I call my business True Beginning, because that was my true beginning. That was when I took the first step in living my life according to my needs. So my business is really focusing on supporting people, mainly parents or mothers, to understand themselves. But it was a decision I knew I needed to make. And when I made this decision, I opened up a door for a lot of possibilities to come to me. And I met a wonderful man, which is my husband. I have now a beautiful baby, which is Lucas. He's 10 months old now. And I started my business. My business is mainly focusing on working in the Akashic Record. The Akashic Records is an energetic database where all our actions and choices are energetically stored. So it is possible for me when I'm working with my clients to understand why they are not reaching their goals. So if a client is having difficulty in falling pregnant and it's really something that they want as a couple or she wants as a woman, it's possible for me to go into the Akashic Records and look up what actions is she doing that are not in congruence or aligned to this need that she has. And so, like I mentioned, I really wanted for 4 years to fall pregnant, but I wasn't really allowing myself the space for a baby. So my life was very occupied. My house had everything in order and everything was already defined, which now that I have a child, know that it's impossible to keep. You really need to be more flexible and accept changes that the child brings. And so going into the Akashic Records, it's possible for me to see what actions need to change, what energy is blocked. And I also have the possibility to help release that energy block so that client can reach their goal in I would say a fast manner. So manifesting becomes clear. It's also easier for people to understand how they can manifest. And so that's mainly my business. I have currently 2 programs. One program is focusing on coaching individual people with their needs, be it falling pregnant, be it more money. And the other one is focusing on parents. I love working with parents and I love that I can help parents understand and accept their children for who they are at soul level. And this program is called Fun Family Dynamic, because I really do believe that once we accept each other for who we are, we do create a fun family dynamic.
You always say that your focus is children and that's why you support parents and want to be moms. Is that the mission you have?
Yes. So my focus is children, and it's always been, since I can remember, children, because I do believe that children are present that help us create a better future. And by present, I also mean they are gifts. They are beautiful beings and they are true in who they are. And so I really wish to help parents see that children do know what they need and they do know how to communicate, because if a child is hungry, they scream. Or if a child is tired, they know how to tell you, hey, it's time to go home. I need to rest. Doesn't matter what age they have. They know how to communicate with us. What is important is that parents are willing to listen and to see this communication for what it is, and not that the child is being difficult, or because babies don't know how to communicate besides screaming. So when they need something, they have to scream, and it's not that they're being difficult, it's just that they need to be heard. So like we need to be heard, we use words because we know them, we've learned them, and they use what they know. And so I just want and hope to help parents understand that communication, understand why the children have different needs. Usually when you have 2 children, you try and give the same education to 2 children, and that is not possible because there is no 2 people that are equal. And so each child needs a different way of educating. And this is actually very easy if we know what the child needs. And that's what my program, Family Dynamics Made Fun, really supports parents with, is knowing the child so that they know what are the differences between their children, know what the difference between the child and themselves is, but also commonalities in the family so that they can find easy way to communicate and also to understand the different attitudes from each child.
When I spoke to you during our Q&A session, you have mentioned that eating habit of children. Can you share with us what is important for parents to consider when it comes to children's eating habits, and how these habits are connected to the child's soul?
Like I mentioned, each child is different. We are also different. And when we currently in society have rules, we have rules that are generalized. We kind of forget the uniqueness of each person. And this happens also with eating habits. So every country actually has different eating habits, but we still believe that our eating habits are the right one. And so you have a time to have breakfast and you have a time to have lunch, and you are not allowed to eat. I think the normal idea is that every 3 hours you can eat, but in between those 3 hours you shouldn't eat. Some people believe that you should stay without eating more than 8 hours. Other people believe that you should eat little and every 3 hours. And so these are all beliefs. And what we take these beliefs and we try and make a rule out of them that fits everyone. And that is not really possible because we are each different. We have different needs. And I usually use the example of my son. He's only 10 months old, but he knows how to communicate with me. He's an independent soul. I would classify him this way. He's very independent. And when I give him food, I really notice this because if I try and give him food in his mouth, he doesn't eat anything. But if I put it on a plate, allow him to take out and mess the whole house, then he will eat a lot, and he eats and he has no issues with it. So sometimes we force children to eat when they don't want to eat, or we don't allow them to eat when they need to eat. And this brings kind of disorder in their eating habits. And when parents understand this, they can really help the children that have issues with overweight or with not eating. So the concerns that we have, is he healthy? Is she going to have issues with being teased at school because too much weight? These are all concerns that we have because we are focusing on the outside. But at the same time, we are not willing to make decisions that are different because we think, how will society see me if I allow my child to eat, I don't know, cereal at dinner, when it's not cereal that you should eat at dinner, you should eat a hot meal at dinner. And so these are different ways or approaches that each soul needs. And my program really helps parents understand why their child has a eating disorder. But it's not only with eating, it's with everything. Everything that has a rule to it comes from the majority, but we are all individual, and celebrating our uniqueness and allowing our diversities to shine, I would say, is the secret.
Family dynamic made fun sounds so interesting. Can you speak a bit about it?
So Family Dynamics Made Fun is a 2-month program that I have. And it's basically accessing the Akashic records of each family member, looking into who they are as individuals, what their soul need is and their purpose, and also looking at the differences between each soul and what is similar and what are the commonalities, and how the parents can communicate with the child, considering who the child is, but also not losing sight of who they are. So it's also an empowering program for the parents, so that they know exactly what they need and how they have to show up also, so that they also feel fulfilled and happy. And that's why the name of the program is really Family Dynamics Made Fun. It's not only fun for the children, but it's also fun for the parents.
Yeah, because we parents already programmed that lots of things in our mind about how to feed the food to baby, what is the timing, everything. So I think that way we need to thought in a different way, at least to think about child's prospect also about it. Yeah,
exactly. So I was just going to say, that's right. Looking at the child's perspective, and also allowing the parent to know that it's okay to respect the child, so that the parent doesn't feel like they're doing something wrong. This evaluation that we have from society has a lot of influence on how we feel and why we force our children into fitting into society. The idea that all children have to be the same, or if the neighbor's child does this, then you have to do it better. And it allows the parents also the freedom to make the decisions that they want to make without worrying about how they're going to look in the eyes of other people.
yeah, that's a great tip for all the listeners. So what about your passion? Do you like cooking and baking?
Oh, I love I love the kitchen. I started with the kitchen very, very young. I was always helping my mom when she would do her baking. I was
Okay.
also the one forcing kind of the baking because I love the experience of being in the kitchen and creating new things. Um, I
Oh,
have
wow.
a limitation with food, so I am intolerant to milk sugar and fruit sugar. And I found this out
Mm-hmm.
around 6 years ago. And since then, I've been taking my favorite baking
Mm-hmm.
recipes and adjusting them so that they don't have any milk products, or if they have milk products, that it's low in lactose, which is my problem, and also low in sugar, and considering which sugars I'm allowed to eat. And so I've created some sugar-free, refined sugar-free recipes. And now that I'm a mom, I also
Okay.
do them for my son.
So can you share some sugar substitute things we can use for our baby food?
So I go with vegetables, and I use fruit. So the fruits that
Okay.
I'm allowed to eat, for example, banana, papaya, which are extremely sweet, but they are low in fruit sugar,
Okay.
and they are great for
Mm-hmm.
recipes. Banana, for example, is also very good to substitute egg. So if you don't eat eggs, you can always use
Okay.
banana, and it kind of solidifies baking recipes. There's also in the internet where you can see the conversion,
Mm-hmm.
how much bananas you need for how much egg. But I also use vegetables. I love pumpkin. I have a lot of recipes with pumpkin. I have recipes with sweet potato. And yeah, and what I usually try and do is create one
Oh, wow.
recipe and then change just the vegetable or the fruit that I use, and that makes it already something new and tasty for my son. So yeah, that's what I usually do.
Wow, that's amazing. If you can share with us a recipe that mothers can easily cook for their children.
So I have a recipe that is a two-in-one recipe. I use it to
Okay.
make to make a pudding and pancakes. So I
Mm-hmm.
start with the pudding.
Oh,
I
wow. Okay.
mix two eggs with two bananas, ripe bananas. I add in 1
Yeah.
cup of milk. I use
Mm-hmm.
almond milk, so it's a nut milk, but you can
Mm-hmm.
use any kind of milk. I advise for children to choose a sugar-free milk. That's what I use. And the banana has enough sugar. So, I
Okay.
mean, the banana is
Mm-hmm.
extremely sweet. I mix everything together, and then I put the the batter, half of the batter, usually it's half that I need, into small little cups, and I put them in the cup
Mm-hmm.
in boiling water so that the boiling water will heat up the pudding and cook it slowly. And then the rest of the
Okay.
batter that I have, I add in 5 spoons of almond flour, but you can use any flour. I've also used coconut flour before, and it's also very good. And I mix this, and from this new mixture, I make pancakes. And the pancakes I love when I go out with my son, so there's something he can eat when he's hungry and we are on the road. And the puddings,
Oh,
I
wow.
have like a dessert. It's kind of like a dessert after he's eaten his meal, and me and my husband are eating so that he has something in front of him and he feels part of the table. And so I put the
Mm-hmm.
pudding in front, and he he takes it as he likes. So it is because he's only 10 months, so it is a bit messy. But it's also a very good
Okay.
coordination exercise for him to try and
Mm-hmm.
manage putting the food into his mouth, and he has a spoon, so he can choose to use the spoon and not. And so it's a training for him also for when he's older, how to use a spoon and how to eat by himself, or how to use his hands and pick up things. So that's what we do here. Mm-hmm.
Amazing, Isabel. Lot to learn from you.
I was speaking with my husband about your podcast, and we were speaking about the potty training.
Okay.
And I was telling him,
Oh.
oh, it was so interesting, this idea of every day just putting a few minutes just to create the habit. And he said, oh, yeah. And
Mhm.
this was like, I don't know, maybe 2-3 weeks ago that we were speaking about it. And I think yesterday or the day before yesterday, he said, oh, so we really have to start looking into buying the seat for the toilet so that he can start. And I was like, oh, yeah, true.
Yeah.
We have to really think of
Yeah.
it. And so I found it interesting that now that we're doing the call, that he also remembered, and he reminded me, oh, that was really interesting and that was really important. So we have to add that in. It's really a wonderful thing that I'm able to share this with.
Thank you, Isabel, for sharing many insightful details, techniques, home remedies, and I hope all mothers who will listen this podcast will get benefit from this. So, with that, we have come to the end of this episode, and please do share this podcast with your friends, your colleagues, and all the mothers in your network. I would also like to request all my listeners to please share your thought, views, feedback about today's episode, and if you have any topic on which you want me to cover on my podcast, please write to me. Would love to receive your comments. I will see you next week. Till then, bye bye.